I make $64,000 a year, and one thing I personally refuse to fit into my monthly budget is a car payment. I've had a car loan before. I understand why people get them, and I'm not saying everyone needs to pay cash for a car. But after paying mine off last year, I realized just how much that one monthly payment was affecting everything else I wanted to do with my money, especially when it comes to saving and investing it for the future. So throughout this video, I want to explain why I originally financed my car, why I paid it off early, and what I plan to do differently the next time I need another vehicle. So if that interests you, feel free to stay tuned. I wanted to start it off by kind of giving you a brief history of my cars. Only being 27, I've owned or was responsible for 3 cars so far. Before high school, before senior year, I got my license, and my parents went in 50-50 with me on I think it was a 2004 Dodge Dakota. I think it had 140 or 150,000 miles on it. So it was kind of a beater, but I mean, it started up, got me from A to B. It got me through, the rest of high school and a good bit of my first 2 years at a local community college. My second vehicle was a 2006 Dodge Ram 1500 truck. Definitely a stupid purchase, being an idiot back then, thinking, oh man, I want a big lifted truck, not realizing, hey, this is an old truck. It's going to be a lot of maintenance on it, high mileage, gas it's a gas guzzler. Both those vehicles, were fully paid off, when I got them, because they were used vehicles, and I eventually needed to replace them because I was commuting to college at this point, when I transferred from my local community college, and it was a gas guzzler. Trying to fit it into a student parking garage was impossible. I would have to go all the way up to the top of the garage, and if it was raining, then I was going to get rained on and just sun beating down on it. It just wasn't a good situation. So that's when I ultimately decided I am just going to get a new car. I'm just going to go lease a car. Hey, I'll keep this car for the length of the lease term, and I'll bring it back and decide, hey, maybe I'll get another vehicle, or maybe I'll buy it out. I don't know entirely yet. So that's kind of what I did. That's honestly how I got exposed to my first car loan. I was, going into my senior year of high school, or excuse me, senior year of college. And like I said, I needed a reliable vehicle, something good on gas mileage, and just something that would last me for the next 2-3 years. I didn't have to worry about fixing if something major happened to it, because, it was a lease. And I think, ultimately why I got that lease is I didn't have enough cash to comfortably, buy the vehicle outright. I think at the time the car was worth, I think it was between $30,000 and $35,000. So definitely just, being a college student, I obviously just didn't have that money laying around. With that, I obviously wanted something newer, more reliable. So I went with a new vehicle. I was definitely focused more on the monthly price compared to the total price of the vehicle. I think that is also a lesson I learned throughout this process. Hey, they can get you down to the monthly price you're willing to pay, but as they slowly decrease the price, that's just putting more possible higher interest rate on your loan, or just overall the length of your loan. So instead of 36 months or 48 months, you could be paying for 60 months or 72 months. So that's just more interest has time to kind of build on top of each other, and you end up paying that much more than the total price of the car. I think when I realized that, I kind of took a step back and realized it's really not to my benefit to get cheaper and cheaper monthly payments, because like I said, it's just going to increase my loan term length and just overall more money that I'm just giving them for free, more money they're taking out of my pocket that I'm paying towards the interest on the loan. And when it comes to it, at the end of the day, yes, sometimes you want a new vehicle. You want to make sure that this vehicle is safe, it's brand new, it's not going to have any issues with it. Completely understandable. I'm not making this video as I'm an idiot for doing it, and everybody else who does it after me is an idiot. No, I mean it all depends on your situation, what your situation allows. Me, I'm ultimately glad I did it. For the most part, like I said, I had a had a reliable vehicle, still have that reliable vehicle for years to come, hopefully. I think that is when I ultimately decided, okay, well, I got this vehicle. It's going to last me a while. I ended up keeping it throughout the whole lease term. And then I decided, well, hey, I think this was around like 2023, 2024. That is when my lease ended, and they're like, hey, you can either return it or buy it out. And at this time, used car prices were kind of insane. They've gone down a little bit, but I mean, they're still pretty high. And I ended up looking at my vehicle, and I officially had equity in the vehicle now. Like, if I were to give it back to them, I'd be losing money on the value of it instead of paying off the remaining balance on it. So, for example, if it was $15,000 to outright pay it off, the car was worth $18,000 if I tried to turn around and sell it. So for people who were a little confused there, if I didn't explain it correctly. So at this point, I knew I had equity in the vehicle. I was like, well, I'm not giving it back to them and losing money on my side. That was kind of a way I was looking at it. So I decided, okay, hey, I'm gonna buy out the vehicle. I'm gonna continue making monthly payments. I'm gonna try to pay it off as fast as possible, so I'm not paying off as much interest on the loan. So I think I ended up putting like, I think total left over was maybe, I think it was like $18,000 left on the loan. So I put like $5,000 down. So I think I ended up taking a loan out for $12,000 or $13,000 through like AAA, because they had a cheaper interest rate than what the dealership was trying to offer me. And at this point, it was like, hey, ready, set, go. I am trying to pay this off very fast. I think they may have gave me like 36 months to pay it off, but I wanted to pay it off just that much faster. So like I said, I wasn't losing money on interest. The payment was around $405 a month. And, every time I had an opportunity, like every time like I didn't have excess bills that month, or, had a little excess cash, or sometimes I even didn't put as much into, my investment accounts as I normally would for the month. Instead, I would put that towards, the principal amount on the loan. So it would just reduce the recurring interest payment that much, and just slowly getting the value of the payment down as fast as possible. I would say I definitely, reduced other spending temporarily. I tried not to, go out as much on weekends, because that tab could build up to like $50 to $100 on drinks, especially if you're buying it for some of your buddies, or if you're going on a date. A date could easily run you $50 to $100 for drinks and dinner and whatever you do afterwards. So I was pretty aggressive the first half of kind of, or I'd say the whole period of paying it off as fast as I could. I think in total it may have taken me maybe like when I bought the vehicle out, at most like 12 months to pay it off, and I might be like being conservative there. It may have taken me less. Like I said, if I was able to throw in an extra $1,000 towards that principal a month, I was doing it. And then plus the original like $405 for the monthly payment. And it went fast. I'm going to be honest. Like I remember telling my buddies, like, hey, I'm officially debt free. Like, I officially just paid off my vehicle. Like, it was such a cool feeling. And then calling the dealership and asking them, like, oh, well, hey, like, now do I get the tag? Because when you don't fully own the car, you never get the tag. And the tag initially went to AAA to hold, because I was paying off their loan to me. So then like got a hold of AAA. I was like, hey, I just made my last payment on my car. It feels good. When do I actually get the paperwork in my name? So that is a cool experience to feel. So like anyone who is currently in a car payment or paying off a loan, whatever it is, student loans, or I don't know, you took a loan out for tickets, whatever. Like whenever you finish paying it off, it feels so good. You're like, wow, like what am I going to do with this extra $405 a month that was going towards a car payment? Now I can spend it. I can invest it. I can do whatever I want with it. It's that additional $405 going into your pocket instead of going into that car loan. So it was just a really cool feeling. Like I said, if you guys are grinding out a loan right now, keep grinding away. When you get to the finish line, it's gonna feel pretty good. So my little rant aside there. What is that? Where did that extra $405 go when I officially finished paying off my vehicle? Most of it went towards investing. I would say for easily for the next like year and a half, or at least the last couple months, I was putting that additional $400 into my investment accounts, just continually to invest a good chunk of my salary into that investment account, to just, like I said, keep it growing, keep it building up, so it starts to continue to compound on itself. I will say the last couple months I've taken $200 out of that $400, we'll just say, every month, and I'm putting $200 a month into a little stipend that I'm kind of rewarding myself. And what I'm naming that stipend is like travel or vacation. So if it gets to a point where that fund is $1,000 and I decide, hey, I want to spend $1,000 on a trip, I don't feel guilty about it. And I think that's what freeing up this $400 ultimately allowed me to do. Obviously I'm not putting $400 towards the stipend, I'm only putting $200, but it's still the fact that, paying off that car loan, it held up $400 a month and wasn't allowing me to do this stipend. So with that freed up, I was able to do it. So it's a cool feeling, guys. Just get out of that loan, get out of that debt, and it starts to feel really cool when you see more money hitting your bank account and less going out on bills or debt or credit card debt, whatever sort of debt you got. It's just a great feeling overall for sure. I'm keeping my current vehicle, that I just paid off, for as long as it remains dependable and financially reasonable. Obviously if it starts to be where I'm paying a couple $100s, couple $1,000s every few months or a couple times a year to keep it running, then it would be probably time to get rid of it. But I plan on keeping it till the wheels fall off. I want to keep it. I'm not really looking to upgrade a vehicle because I'm bored with my current one. I'm not very materialistic when it comes to that. If it gets me to A and B safely, consistently, I'm fine with it. I don't need a fancy vehicle now. I mean, if the air goes out in Florida, especially summer, when I get out to my car after work and it says it's 115 degrees inside the car, then I may have to get a new car if it just doesn't make sense to repair the air in there. But that's obviously a conversation for another day. I would focus on the total purchase price rather than the monthly payments if I were to lease and then eventually buy out another vehicle. Knowing what I know now, how they're not just decreasing the price of the vehicle by reducing the monthly payment, they're just increasing the interest rate and or the loan term on the loan. So you're not getting away with a lower payment and cheaper vehicle. They're making their money and then some way or somehow. I'm not going to promise that I will never finance another vehicle under my current circumstances. Obviously that's kind of what we discussed just then. But circumstances change. You may someday receive a genuinely low promotional rate, or just need a new vehicle, whether the wife needs a new vehicle, or your kids are starting to drive and you want to, obviously being our kids, you'd want them to be in the safest, most reliable vehicle money could buy. You may not have accumulated enough cash to buy it outright, so you'd have to finance it. I guess like family is the most important thing, especially your children. So I don't think there's really any negotiating room for that last statement. Like I said, my goal is to never need a car loan again. But, if I ever choose to finance, I want it to because the numbers make sense. It's just not because financing is the only way I can afford the car. But, it really, like I said, varies on, everybody's life experiences or, just their personal situation at the time. In closing, so I'm wrapping up here. I'm gonna stop ranting soon. But I don't think having a car payment means someone is bad with money. Now, obviously, if you're paying $1,200, $1,500 a month on a big lifted truck that you don't need, you may be a little bit bad with money, but we can fix it. I had one myself, obviously, especially described throughout this video. But at the time, financing, helped me get the vehicle. It helped me secure the loan, helped me secure the vehicle, so I'd have a safe and reliable transportation to and from work and school. After paying it off and seeing how much more freedom I have in my monthly budget, like I said, freeing up around $400 a month, like just extra money that is not leaving my bank account, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to, having to do that. My car is not the newest vehicle on the road. It's a 2021 Mazda. It's reliable. It's mine. I own it. And the money that used to go toward that payment can now help me build my future. More specifically, investing in the stock market, index funds, maybe rental property soon, my own home, to kind of connect it back to, like this broader channel. Like, hey, what are you going to get out of this channel? Building wealth on a normal salary is not usually about finding one massive secret. I'm sure there are some secrets out there. If you guys get any like bangers, feel free to drop it in the comments below. Help us all out, but it's truly about controlling the handful of large expenses or large loans that, can consume your income every month. That's, I think, most Americans, or just any any human will probably experience in their lifetime. A car loan, student loans, credit card loans if you let them get out of hand, and, mortgages, homes, buying your own house, maybe rental properties as well. So, I mean, I think it's useful information for the majority of everybody. So, as always, guys, I think that's it for me tonight. Quite the long video tonight. Definitely a lot of rambling. So anyone who stuck with me the whole time, I appreciate the support as always. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a good night.